Hey everybody, welcome back to Shooting the Shit Uncensored. You know who it is. It's the dad bod god, the bald, the beard, and the fucking beautiful Piers Austin. And tonight my guest is returning. It is the one and only arm collector, Jessica Troy. And I'm excited to have Jessica on. She is without a doubt one of the, you know what, when you say Australia's best wrestlers, I think Jessica Troy has to be in that conversation. I think there's a lot of great talent here in Australia, but I think Jessica Troy is definitely one to mention in that conversation. I'm excited to have Jessica returning to the show, but before we get into the episode, I want to take a quick second to talk about our sponsor, Health Vape. Now, Health Vape is your healthy vaping alternative. All of their products are no nicotine, no addictive or harmful chemicals. They help restore your energy while giving you the vital boost you need to get through your day. So go and check out all the vape and pod products over at healthvape.com. Use that promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Now, guys, we just hit over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. You know we're banging to get to that 2,000 number. So tap that little red button and tap in to the Piers Austin channel. Also, if you're listening on a podcast platform, please give us a 5-star review. I appreciate it. It helps with our analytics. It helps us reach more amazing people and bring more amazing conversations like this one we're about to get into right now. But guys, without further ado, let's get into my conversation with the one and only arm collector, Jess Troy. The one and only Jess Troy, welcome back to the show. It's great to see you.
Hi, it's good to be back. I'm pretty excited.
I'm excited as well. Thank you so much for coming back on the show, especially during a busy time for everyone over at PWA. Just got done with Queensland for the LFG tour. We're talking before that. How did you find wrestling over in Queensland? Was this your first time, going up north to wrestle?
No, I've been up there a few times. Not since, obviously, I went up a few times pre-COVID. This is my first time going back there in years. So it was pretty cool. Like, even like in the few years I hadn't been there, I think the scene in Queensland has grown so much. I think all the training schools they have up there, it's definitely helped that. And you can see like everyone up there just wants it so bad. They all want to be in Australian wrestling so bad. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've spoken to Bobby Bishop. I had Outback Adam on a while ago, and I actually asked them the questions. Like, we hear so much about Australian wrestling, like as Australian wrestling fans, about like Victoria, New South Wales, but we very rarely hear from Queensland, and we're starting to see some talent come out. Do you think after this show, these two shows that the PWA just put on up there, do you think that is going to change and we're going to start hearing more and more about Queensland wrestling?
Yeah, I really hope so. Like, that was one of the goals. I think PWA going up there was definitely to get more eyes on not just Queensland wrestling, but Australian wrestling as a whole, like as a group. So not just PWA, but like there's Queensland, there's Melbourne, there's all these other places that wrestling exists. So getting more eyes just on all of Australia in general, I think is a massive part in what we do.
Yeah, well, that comes down to, like Now We Conquer, You're Going to Notice Us, that Mick put out. And I think over the years, like Australian wrestling has grown. And I've said before, like, during that time, during the pandemic, Australia was one of the first places to really have sporting events, wrestling shows, for example, back at full capacity or close to full capacity. And I think that put a lot of eyes on the Australian wrestling scene. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. And it's such a shame because I always thought that pre-lockdown and everything that was going on, Australia was on such like it was growing, and it was definitely like feel like it kept getting bigger and bigger, and then all of a sudden we all had to stop what we were doing, and no one was allowed to train or do anything, put on shows and all that kind of stuff. But coming out of the pandemic or where we are now, it's like, especially doing this whole October LFG tour, you can feel it coming back to where it was a bit before COVID happened. So I'm just can't wait for it all to be like back to normal and to get more eyes on Australian wrestling like it was before as well.
Yeah, and also earlier in the year you went over to the US, and I think there was a group of people went over to the US. How did you find like the US acceptance? Like, were they knowledgeable about the Australian wrestlers when you went there to the indie scene? Like, did they know a little bit about the background of everyone or certain?
Um, Sometimes, like, it just depends on where you went, I thought. Like, because I have friends over there. I know of some people. I've wrestled over there a few times now. So I had, like, my networking and my group of people that I knew over there. But, yeah, I think Australia still is a bit closed off when it comes to the rest of the world and getting eyes on it. So, yeah, not so much, I would say, sadly.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is as well, like it's one of those things where I think pro wrestling has always been such a big Americanized
Mm.
form of entertainment. And now in Australia, I think it's probably bigger now than what it has been ever.
Yeah, no, very true. Yeah. Even like the fans we're getting now and like the amount of also interest we're getting in the training schools as well, I think has grown tremendously over the last couple of years. Like it's just the amount of people that are coming in to the schools, the amount of fans that are coming in, it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So hopefully that continues on as well, so that we can get just more and more people involved in Australian wrestling, so that Australia realizes they have this really cool niche group of people performing this way, and then maybe the rest of the world can catch on afterwards.
Well, what I find really interesting, and when I speak, because I speak to a lot of people in the Australian scene, and
Yeah.
one of the consistent stories that I hear or things that I hear from people is, I had no idea Australian wrestling existed.
It
And
happens
it's
every time
like,
I have a conversation with someone about it. Every time I tell someone, "Oh, I do professional wrestling," they're like, "That exists in Australia?" Yeah.
but it's interesting. I took a friend of mine to a PWA show, and he's not really like he's not a hater of wrestling. He's just doesn't watch it.
Yeah, that's
And
fair.
I said, "Look, I got a spare ticket. Come to PWA with me. Like, let's go hang out." And he's like, "Okay, cool." And it was at Factory Theater, and we're walking in. He's like, "Bro, I was expecting like an RSL club or like something like this." And he's like, "Okay." And he's sitting there. And the first match, I think it was you and Robbie Eagles, which
Oh,
kicked
wow,
off.
okay, yeah.
So what a match to kick it off. And he's sitting there, and like he's seen, okay, Robbie's come out, you've come out, and he's looked at me, he's like, "A man versus woman. Are you serious, mate?" And I go,
That's
just
crazy.
I was like,
That's
just watch,
nonsense.
just watch. And that match, he was like on the edge of his seat. He's like, "Bro, what the?" And like from the rest of the show, he left and he was just like, "I can't believe this is like happening in Australia. I can't believe the
Yeah,
quality of what I've just seen." And like I said, completely from the start of that first match to the end of the show, he was just like enamored with it. And I
mm.
find like a lot of people when they go to, especially a PWA event, they walk in and then they walk out massive fans.
It happens a lot, like, a lot of the times, like, because 'cause I've had my mum goes to a lot of the shows, and she might bring a friend, or say my dad brings a friend to a show, and they walk out being like, "Oh, we need to come to every show," or, "We're gonna watch every show on Fight TV now." Like, every time a new person comes in, it's almost like we've made a fan for life, which is really cool to see. It must mean we're doing an okay job.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because like when I had Scott Green on from Newey Pro,
Hmm.
he said like he took friends like to a wrestling show that would be like, "Oh yeah, how's your wrestling going?" And then like after the show, they would say, "Hey man, how's your wrestling?" You know what I mean? Like the tone of that would then change. It's like people would go, "Oh wow, this isn't just what we thought it would be. This is." I
Yeah.
think that breaks the perception of it as well for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely get that. I feel like, wrestling, especially in Australia, has a bit of a, I don't know if it's stigma or like a perceived idea about what you're going to go in there and see. But it's grown so much over the past few years, especially working with PWA. I think it's grown so much as well, moved on and like evolved almost from where it was 5 years ago into what we can do in 5 years' time instead. You can't just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and expect fans to turn up. How's that going to work? If you change it and move on with the times and make it more interesting, then maybe more fans will have an interest in it.
And I think as well with having like the social media aspect of well to be able to really sort of enhance storylines. Whereas I feel like when I first started, hanging out and watching Australian wrestling 20 something years ago, it was really like shows were booked on a show by show basis. There was no real storylines that went past there. It was like, okay, this is the storyline from the start of the show, this is the end of the show. And it was more just like matches as opposed to like storytelling, where you see now with a lot of promotions, they do long-term storytelling.
Yeah, no, exactly. Especially what we're trying to do at PWA, trying to build in some heaps cool long-term storylines, like what happened with Cherry Stevens and Will Keedus recently. I think that's a great example. Their storyline was amazingly done, like perfection. And then obviously at the last show, the payoff of it was so cool to watch. And that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that building and like making the tension and making it all make sense. So I think it's really cool that we're able to do that more. But I also feel bad for some fans that come in and it's their first show and they don't really understand what's going on. Yeah. But it's nice to have other people around they can ask questions to, and even just like watching the show, you can kind of put two and two together. So as long as you're doing a storyline correctly, then everyone should get it.
It was interesting. The last show at Coogee, I was there and I was standing next to these two women. And it was like they'd been to a show or two before, but they didn't really know what's going on. And they're like, who's the clown? And I'm like, clown? What? The back mullet guy. Oh, that's Mick Moretti. Oh, yeah. Okay, no. And who's that? Well, that's just, and okay, well, what does she do? Well, yeah. And I was like, kind of like explaining to them. I'm like,
yeah, but it's cool that you can do that. Like it's building a community as well, not just within like us backstage, but within everyone basically, like all the fans, everyone that has a job here. You're building a community for all these people, somewhere where they can go and just be happy and forget about all their worries.
Yeah, and I think that's what wrestling does. It takes you, it allows fans to sort of, detach from that for a moment. And it's like when I sit down and watch wrestling, like, it allows me to sit there and enjoy something, which is like, I know what wrestling is. I love wrestling, but like I can still sit there and switch that part of my brain off and enjoy what I'm watching and really get into it. And I think that a lot of fans can. And you see that at shows.
Yeah, no, exactly. Absolutely. And it's cool to see like a weird mixture of hardcore long-term fans plus new fans and maybe a few that this is their second show. It's a really cool mixture of people we have going on at the moment, which is great to see.
Oh, yeah. And I find like even, we're talking about long-term storytelling, and I felt like one of the things that I love about wrestling is when something like tricks me, and especially because I've like loved wrestling for so long, I think like I can't see anything that I haven't seen before. Like I see everything coming. And it was like the SMS and Carter Deems and Ricky South storyline and that whole thing. Like I remember sitting there and I was watching it at home and my wife was next to me and I'm just like, as it's unfolding, I'm like, oh, you motherfuckers.
Because it all makes so much sense once it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, and my wife's like, what's wrong? What's happened? And I'm like, they fucking worked me. Like, I'm done.
I love that. That's so cool. That's the best thing. Like, to be worked, I think is really fun. To be like a fan again. That's always such a nice feeling.
Yeah, it is. But that's the thing, it's those moments where like I really enjoy, wrestling and which really drew me in. Like I remember as a kid seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin put a toy gun to Vince McMahon's head. And I'm thinking at 16, we're going to see someone get smoked on like worldwide television. This is awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, that's the thing where it's like the storytelling of it and the little aspects of it that draw you in.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's like another just really important part of wrestling. Like you can go out there and have a banger match, but if you can draw someone into the emotions, that's even better.
As far as like doing like drawing people into the emotions, like as far as in-ring stuff, like how do you find to get people involved? Is it more of like your style when you're selling, when you're sort of like going for certain things over
Mm.
accentuating what you're about to do? Like, how do you bring people in that emotional journey while you're in the ring and wrestling?
Me personally, I always try the easiest match I can do is the one where I'm an underdog. I find that's the easiest one to get an emotion from the crowd, where I'm the one that's fighting up, which is a lot of the time the case because I might be the smaller person or maybe the less experienced person. I'm always having to work my way up. I
Yeah.
love a match like that, where it looks like I'm defeated and I'm in a vulnerable state, but then all of a sudden I overcome the odds and I'm beating up the other person, and then everyone's happy, but then they cut me back off again, and then I'm underneath, and I really use that. Like, I don't know, I love being in that position where I can use my facial expressions and just look like I'm having to fight back and come up in that kind of way.
Yeah. And like for yourself, like, being in that sort of like underdog role, do you enjoy being in that spot? Like, or is that sort of something you see that you do quite well? Because I kind of feel like in some cases, like, yeah, I agree. Like, we can see you as that underdog, but
Mm.
like, I honestly, most matches, I see you as a badass where I'm like, come on, man. Like, she's got to go out there and but the thing is, as well, like, when you're wrestling men, women, it doesn't matter. Like, you still have that level of badassness about you that you can sort of incorporate that.
Yeah, I found that, especially maybe like a few years ago, I was always in that underdog kind of position, but now a few years later, people or the audience or I have a reputation about myself, and I'm finding I'm in that position less and less and less, which is good because it's pushing me out of my comfort zone for matches and all that kind of stuff. And I'm the person like up the top of the match, but it's just making me. It's a big challenge for me. Basically, it's very different to what I'm used to doing. But over the past few years, I'm not really that much of an underdog anymore, which is cool to
Yeah.
say, but it's just
Well,
harder.
I think that comes yeah, look, I think that comes with just, being around and longevity, really.
Mm.
Um, Also, we saw, you were, at Prize Bulls on Parade, you were the last PWWA champion. I made sure to get that correct this time. Um, you know, we've seen like, PWA stepping away from like, gender specific titles now, the Solar PWA championship. I asked Cherry Stevens about this, and I'd like to ask you the same question is, do you feel now because wrestling is evolving so much that we are going to see less women specific championships and they're just all gender specific championships, I should say, and more championships that people can sort of all vie for? Like, do you think that we are going to see the end of a women's championship in a lot of companies?
That's an interesting question. I'm not really too sure. I'd like to say yes. That's what I would like to move towards. Not everyone's going to agree with that, and that's fine. But that's just the kind of wrestling I enjoy is the one where I can go out there and wrestle anyone and it not matter anything. Like there's no weight restrictions, there's no gender restrictions on anything. So that's my goal. But I don't know if that's going to be a thing that happens in a lot of the bigger promotions. I can't see that happening for like many, many years. But I would love to see it happen more in Australian wrestling because I think Australian wrestling can be so ahead of the curve and can almost set the example for what we could be working towards. And not every promotion is going to agree with that. And I get it. You might face some backlash because obviously not everyone loves women wrestling men. I don't know why, but people don't like it, and they might get backlash. But I don't think backlash is always a reason to not do what you should do. Like for the first ever women's match in Australia, so like a girl versus a girl, the first ever match that happens, there was heaps of backlash for it.
Mm.
They didn't like it when two females wrestled each other. And now when I go out there and wrestle a male, I get backlash for it like all the time. So it's just like another way to evolve, basically. Just because you get backlash for
Have you
something doesn't mean you stop doing the right thing.
100%? Have you ever had like, not, I don't want to say attacked, but have you ever had like people hit you up on social media and sort of like criticize the fact of that, like mixed wrestling, or was it just like,
Yeah, I've had a few comments here and there, never from anyone that I know. It's just like random people that comment on videos I post on Instagram or something like that. Um, yeah, nothing drastically.
yeah, because that's the thing. I think a lot of wrestling, you have to understand, like, and I think I said this to you the first time we spoke. It's like me personally, growing up, I was never a fan of mixed wrestling or intergender wrestling, but I've come around. Like, I'm a 40-year-old guy, so I come from a different time frame. But I
Yeah.
can still now like sit there and go, okay, I can appreciate a Jess Troy versus a Robbie Eagles. I can sit
Yeah.
here and watch a Cherry Stevens versus a Mick Moretti and enjoy it. And people that say that it's not believable, I just got two words: Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like it when people say it's not believable. It's like, well, do you do this? Like, can you say what's believable or not? Like, I just don't like, yeah. And like saying, going off what you just said earlier, my mum, for example, she's never been the biggest fan of it when I go out there and wrestle the boys. She doesn't really like that kind of stuff, but she's at every single PWA show watching me out there and cheering for me and supporting me. So you always have a choice.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that that's where it's evolved. Would you see like like say AEW or WWE going down that path, or do you think being such a large company it would put them in a stickier situations to be able to have those kind of matches?
Yeah, I don't really know. I'm never going to claim to be like a business person and understand the logistics of it all. I can only go off what my emotions and my beliefs. But I feel like I can see it happening. Like WWE has done a few matches like that recently. AEW, I think, did a few mixed tag matches. I can't remember how it went, but I can see definitely it happening more in the future, which is just cool to see because there's some promotions out there that just like to copy what they do. So hopefully they can get behind it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Mama Troy, and I like we were talking before the show. I love getting an opportunity to catch up with your mum because she's such like
She sees at every show.
proud, but she's like the most proud mum you will ever see.
She's just a big
You know,
fan.
yeah. How does like does
She's watching
she?
now, I betcha.
Oh, 100% she is. But like, hey, let me know, Mama Troy. I'll send you a link. You can join us.
She
Um,
she was telling me if she can work out how to comment, she will, but she's not very tech savvy, so she probably doesn't know how to comment on things.
no, it's all right. But like, does she still like? Do you find she still does a lot of worry like after certain matches? Like I saw her straight after your match with Charlie Evans, where
Ah,
like you
yeah,
had
that's the only one she's
something.
really worried about.
She came because I saw her straight after that, and she was like, "Oh," well, I'm like, "You okay?" And she's like, "Oh, that I can't believe they did it." I was like, and I'm sitting there going, "Don't like the parent in me is saying, don't say it was a really cool match. Don't say it was a really cool match." I'm like, "Yeah, I understand what you're saying," but they tore the house down. And as soon as I said the words, I was like, "What the
What?
fuck? Why would you say that to this girl's mother? Like, why?" But she went, "Yeah, it was, but it's not the point." And I'm just like,
That's funny because, after mine and Charlie's match, I think intermission or like during intermission, I went up to go to the merch table and me and Charlie both run into my mum and she just starts yelling at us and like tearing us a new one, like going full at it. I'm like, I'm sorry, mum. And she's never been angry before. She's never been worried or anything after a match or ever worried about me during a match or not wanting me to wrestle. So it was pretty funny.
but was that your first time, going in and using stuff like barbed wire, thumbtacks, and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely my first time doing that kind of match. I've done the cage match before with Steph, but that was the only kind of like gimmick match I've done before. And then also that one in the hardcore with Charlie.
And what's your take on deathmatch wrestling? Is that something that you want to try and dabble more in, or are you, because like you're a very technical, chained style of wrestler, which I enjoy that sort of style. I also
Mm.
enjoy deathmatch, but like, is
Yeah,
that
you can enjoy
deathmatch?
both. Yeah, I think like those kind of wrestlers can also be interested in those like both kind of wrestling or any kind of wrestling. You can not just stick to one style if you want to. I don't personally see myself doing death matches per se because light tubes scare me, basically. I don't want to breathe in the dust. Yeah, I can't see myself going down that route. But hardcore matches and street fights and any other kind of like gimmick style match, I can see myself doing, but probably not a death match. And I'm not even going to say I want to. I don't.
Yeah. I think like you hear a lot of veterans and veterans I've spoken to, like, you know, I spoke to Marty Jones, who trained William Regal last week, and
Mm.
he was calling him dark matches. So like I was confused as fuck. He's like, yeah, I hate dark matches. I'm like, what do you have against non-televised
Yeah,
matches,
like,
bro?
like
Like,
yeah.
and he's like, no, the wrestling and blah blah, you know, with light
Um,
tubes and stuff like that. And I'm saying, well, if it makes sense and it tells the story,
yeah,
you know,
exactly. I think you can always do like no matter what the style of match is, you can always make it make sense, and there's always an audience for it. Like I love comedy wrestling. I think that's one of the most fun things you can watch ever. So if I was to say I don't like deathmatch wrestling, but then I go out there and watch like a Kikutaro match, then like I know it's very different, but I
mm.
can appreciate the different genres of wrestling, basically.
But I think like, you know, wrestling is kind of like and I've said this is what I always tell people. Wrestling is very similar to a buffet. It's like, okay, cool. You like big heavyweight matches? Here's a big heavyweight match. You like tag team wrestling? Here's tag team. You like the indie spot fest, high flying, fast pace? Here's that sort of match. And
Mhm.
good promotions can give a good mix of that. And I think that that's the thing where fans go to shows. They can sort of go, okay, you know what? I'm here to see this match specifically or this style of wrestling. Oh shit, I didn't know this existed. And they can sort
Yeah.
of then go from there.
And they can find out what they really enjoy watching as well if they have a different buffet, as you say, and like really find what they enjoy watching.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, with your time that you spent over in the US, how long were you over there this year?
I think I was over there for 3 weeks or just under 3 weeks.
Yeah. And you know, going over there, how do you find like the differences between like an Australian crowd and like a US crowd on an indie scene?
Honestly, it's just another crowd, I find. Like, I don't really find much of a difference. They were really, really nice to me, all the crowds I worked in front of. Like, I was really happy about how it all went over there. So, and I actually got to meet some of my people that like subscribe to my Patreon because I have a big American audience from going over there a few times years ago. So it was nice to meet people in person almost and like fans I see on Twitter and stuff like that. So it was a pretty cool experience.
You mentioned Patreon. Like, when did you go down the road of opening up the Patreon and getting that started?
I don't know. It would be close. I don't. Time just flies by. It would be close to like 2 years or something now. I imagine.
And I think like that's probably a way now where like wrestlers now can now start supporting themselves with these certain platforms like a Patreon. You know, do you find like now it's easier for wrestlers to then go and make more of an income using these sort of platforms?
Yeah, I definitely think like if the platform's there, I think you should definitely use it because why would you not? Like I use Patreon as a way to interact with a bunch of my fans. I'm not very good at social media stuff, so I really try to work on my Patreon and I talk about my thoughts and feelings. We do book clubs and all the kind of books and I obviously post photo shoots and stuff like that. So I find it's a good way to just interact with my fans more so. I don't know, it feels more personal, I think.
Yeah, right. And like, do you feel like, you know, because one thing I've seen now a lot of is, and I think it's probably since like the pandemic, is we've seen a lot of wrestlers go down the OnlyFans route where it's like,
Mm.
I'm confused. I don't know what really OnlyFans is or what the offer is. Like, you know, do you feel like OnlyFans and wrestlers that are doing it does sort of like unblur certain lines and sort of allow people in more intimately in a certain way?
Um, no, I wouldn't say so because I say it's always up to the person who's in control of the Patreon. They always have a choice about what they put up and what kind of content they're creating and who they allow onto their platform as well and all that kind of stuff. So it's always going to be a bit more personal, I think, like that, but it doesn't have to be more intimate, I don't think. You don't owe anyone like a really intimate conversation or all that kind of stuff. It's more another content platform, basically. That's all I really
Yeah.
think it is.
I'm old, so I'm just asking the questions that I'm
Yeah,
trying to
of
figure.
course, yeah.
I'm trying to understand. I see these things. I'm like, what is OnlyFans? Like, what does it do? Is it
It's a
what
great
are
way to make money.
they I'm sure it is. But do you find like, for yourself now, recently or the last 12 months or so, you've become a coach now at PWA.
Mm.
How did you find going into that coaching role? Like, was that something that you just sort of slotted in quite easily to, or is that something that you've sort of taken a bit of time to adjust to getting into?
I think it definitely took a bit of time, but that's not a bad thing. I don't think so. So I basically just started coming to a lot of the more beginner classes, like people fresh from their tryouts, basically. And I would help out and I'd watch Ricky do what he's doing when he's coaching and stuff like that. And obviously JT as well. I'd just be there in case they needed my help. And then that kind of morphed into me helping more and more and more. And then suddenly I was taking the sessions. And then they gave me a coach shirt. So that was cool to officially become a coach. It was really, really special because I like moved to Sydney to train for PWA and now I'm a coach there. So that's really cool to say. And I think for our last group of new students that like before this one, the last tryout, that was my first time being a coach from their tryout to them moving up to a new class. So it was really cool to see the students like progression and to actually just help them along because it's almost like every time I see them succeed, like they can finally do a shoulder tackle or even them just learning how to run the ropes. It felt like I was doing something right as well. And like their success is my success, as coaches always say. So I felt that and it was really cool. So
I
I'm
think I
enjoying it a
think
lot.
I think being around people that are just breaking in, like the beginners, would probably be the most funnest class to be a part of because it's like you see these people that have this such passion and just like just there's no I don't know if there's expectation or whatever, but it's like these people are just coming in and it's like they're just so exciting because it's something so new that they've loved for so long
Yeah.
and that they're moving into.
Yeah, exactly. And being around that kind of enthusiasm is really special as well. Like you can see how hard they push each other and the class itself becomes a family almost. And like they push each other, making sure we get through the warm up, making sure we like everyone's happy when someone succeeds in doing something that they struggle with. So it's pretty cool to be a part of someone's first exposure to the wrestling business. Plus working on myself as well, like because coaching in itself is also a challenge for me. And I find that each time I go in there, I'm getting better at coaching people. I'm getting more confident in what I'm saying. And I think that's showing in the way I'm coaching as well.
Yeah, because I think as well, like, and this is across any sport or entertainment form. It's like you could be a great footballer, for example, and go into being a coaching role and not be able to sort of explain that or break things down, or
Absolutely. Yeah,
you
absolutely.
can do it, but you can't explain it.
Yeah.
How did you find going from being like wrestler to coach and breaking things down? Is that something that you found that you were quite easily sort of being able to do, or is that something you're like, okay, I have to not dumb it down, but sort of like simplify this for someone?
Well, at the moment, I'm finding it pretty good. I'm like, as I was saying earlier, I go to our beginner sessions and I watch how Ricky and JT would explain stuff and how they would teach it. And that helped me a lot. So I didn't just get thrown into the situation of teaching a class. I'd actually watch the coaches and how they would explain things. And now I can take them and use that to me. So they're almost coaching me on how to be a coach, I think. And
Yeah.
now I can use all that knowledge and try to use that to explain how to do all the wrestling moves, all that kind of stuff. So at the moment, it's pretty fun.
Oh, I think that, like I said, I think the beginning start of it would probably be like the best, to be able to witness and be a part of because you see
Mm.
that sort of excitement and passion. For yourself, you know, current MCW champion, former champion at PWA. Where do you really now see yourself moving forward? Like, do you sort of like have any more, like any specific goals that you want to accomplish, whether it be the next 12 months or the next 3 years?
Yeah, I definitely have some pretty specific goals. I don't really know on a time frame. I'm really bad at that kind of stuff. I should be better at it. But my next goal is to go to Japan and wrestle in Japan.
Nice.
Yeah,
Has there been
that's
any conversations about going over there?
nothing as of yet, but I'm always open and available, so hopefully soon.
There you go. Stardom,
Yeah,
freedoms, you love Jessica Troy. So,
please. I'm more than excited and keen to go. Yeah.
how was your time working for Shimmer?
Oh, it was fantastic. I loved it so much. I feel like because myself and Charlie went over at such a good time and such a very lucky time that we managed to sneak in and be a part of the Shimmer Girls before obviously pandemic and all that kind of stuff. So just to go over there was always a massive goal. Once you got into Australian wrestling and I realized Shimmer existed, it became such a big goal having people over here like Madison Eagles, Shazza McKenzie that would go over there multiple times a year. I was always working towards going with them and doing the exact same thing. And then a few years later, that's what we did. And we kept going there back and forth, back and forth. And it was just so cool to be able to meet and work with all the girls over there. I learned so much.
Do you
Plus, I
think,
got the rest of
like,
Candice LeRae, so that was sick.
oh, how was that?
Yeah, one of the highlights of my career.
Really? Was it one-on-one match, tag team
Yeah,
match?
it was
Can
a
you-
one-on-one, and I always like for my 18th birthday, Charlie got me like a Candice LeRae shirt, so I was always a pretty big fan, and I got to wrestle her, so I was very excited. Asked
That's
Shazza about how I was before and afterwards because she saw how nervous I was.
yeah. How
Yeah.
like how was Candice to work with? Like, did she sort of see like this, this young Australian person just coming over, and was she like, okay, look, this is what we're gonna do, or like,
No,
how
she
did
was
it?
lovely. Like you always hear it. Like when she came back recently, everyone was saying, "So deserved. She's the nicest person," and it's just true. She's just the nicest person. The small amount of interaction I've had with her, the most loveliest person ever. So she's fantastic.
If a company like Shimmer was to open up in Australia in 2022, how do you think it would go if it was just sort of focusing and highlighting on female talent?
I don't know how that would go. I don't know if there's. I know there is quite a few, quite a bit female talent over here. I don't know if there would be enough, and I might be naive in saying that, but I feel like that's why I also enjoy wrestling everyone so much because obviously we have a smaller population than America. That just means we're going to have a smaller population of wrestlers, which also sadly means we're going to have a smaller population of wrestlers that happen to be a female. So when I go out there and I want to not just wrestle the same person over and over and over again, no matter how good they are, there's going to be a moment when you plateau. So I almost feel like going out there and opening your horizons to be able to wrestle every Australian wrestler just makes it so much better. Like
Yeah.
in the perfect world, that would be amazing. I think that'd be a really cool idea, but I don't know how well it'll work.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But like as you said, I think wrestling the same person over and over again, I think you'd probably get a lot of fun, and you'd probably be able to get a match down really, really well.
Oh,
That
you'd be
could
able to
probably
get a really good match, really, really good match. But then it gets to a point where, am I getting better? Am I improving? And my whole mindset, my entire career has been keep working hard, keep getting better and better and better. If I start plateauing, then yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like as I was saying, it's like if you just work the one person or the one or two people over and over again, it's as a performer, how do you grow from that?
Yeah, I'm sure like you can for a moment, but then eventually you just stop, I think. And then also you probably get really bored
Yeah.
and then that
And
won't
that
be fun anymore.
that would probably be the thing is like if you get bored of what you're doing, and I think you could lose the passion from that very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And once you lose the passion for something like wrestling, it's all downhill from there because that hurts. Why do you want to do something that hurts if you don't enjoy it?
Yeah, exactly. What like after like you've been involved in this for years now, and what is it about wrestling that keeps you coming back? What is the thing that keeps your passion like thriving for this industry?
I really enjoy going out there in like a big match scenario and just vibing with my opponent and vibing with the crowd and like just being in the moment and feeling like I'm wrestling and having that emotion going through my body is can't even describe it really. It's just the adrenaline and having a great match. That's why I love it.
Yeah. How did
Yeah.
you enjoy the prize bulls on parade main event against Sam Osborne, because I feel like
I
that show was just ridiculous. Like, it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, no, that was like it feels ages ago now, but realistically, it probably wasn't that long ago. Really, 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 really enjoyed that. I'm always really lucky, and I'm able to go out there and have matches against these people that are so like amazing and like have really cool matches. I never really get to do like storylines or like fun things. So to go out there and have like dodgy referee going on, that was pretty fun. And to be around there when the audience was reacting was really fun. I love hearing any kind of reaction from the audience. It's so cool. And like once
Yeah.
you get them, like once it goes how we plan for it to go and like getting the emotion that we want them to feel.
Have you ever had a match where, like, you've got something planned out and you're expecting to get a certain reaction and the opposites happen, or you haven't got that reaction? Have you had to sort of like sit there and go, okay, now we got to change up to try and get that reaction, or is it just like, okay, we didn't get it, move on to the next?
No, I haven't had to change anything like that. I mainly just like if that's how they're reacting, then that's how they're reacting, and go from there. Like if I change it, then they might start reacting in another way almost. Like if they're that unreadable, then I just kind of let them react how they plan to. Yeah. I remember there was one match Charlie and I had at Shimmer. It was a tag match, and Charlie and I were the heels, and we would go out there, and it's the last match for the entire weekend for us, and we're so exhausted, and we're not feeling it. We just want to go home at that point, but we go out there, and the crowd starts like cheering for us, and then the other team. It was like dual chants, like but they were so loud, and they kept doing it for like 5 minutes before the bell even started, and it just hyped us up so much that was
Like
just
a
like
big match
such a
feel.
memorable experience.
How do you feel like, saying that? Because like you guys, or you ladies, sorry, went out as the heels, going up against the baby faces, but getting sort of dual chance. Is that where you sort of sit there and go, "Oh, we're supposed to be heels, but we're kind of getting over here"? Like, is that when you're like, all right, we need to start doing some bad shit to try and get the
Which is
reaction?
exactly what we did afterwards. But we did let ourselves enjoy it for a little bit just because we were like, oh, let's just enjoy it. We're tired. It's been a long weekend. But then that's exactly what we did after, which was fun
Yeah.
because then the crowd
how,
reacted exactly how they were meant to. So perfect.
how did you ladies turn them?
Oh, I can't even remember now. It was like years ago. We probably just hit them. Why? I think we started dancing. In my head, we started dancing and then we just attacked the baby faces or something like that.
The crowd doesn't like dancing Australians.
Apparently not. Makes sense.
Yeah. But coming up now, I think this coming weekend is Coliseum, which we haven't seen a Coliseum in what, since 2019.
I know, isn't
Um,
that crazy? Since I was in it.
wow.
Yeah.
So this Coliseum coming up, how excited are you about it?
Oh, I can't wait. Like I feel like it's just been building and like it's teased us so much now. It's like just give us a Coliseum. We're ready for it. And now it's finally going to happen this weekend. And I can't wait. I'm already tired, but I can't wait.
And like for wrestling fans that have never seen a Coliseum or never attended a Coliseum or PWA Coliseum show, what is some of the differences that they can expect from Coliseum as opposed to a Black Label show?
I think it's almost like the way it's been hyped up already. Like even from the first Coliseum, everyone could kind of tell this was a big deal. And like you bring a bunch of Australia's best wrestlers into a room and make them fight each other. That just has big fight feels around it. So you're gonna see some banger matches, and then one person's gonna be the winner, and it's gonna be me.
There you go. Jess has called it. She's going to win it. But, with so many good promotions now coming up, we are seeing, like DMDU, MCW, RCW, PWA, like, and sorry to any promotion I haven't mentioned, but there's so many going on. One of the things like I would like to get your opinion on is a lot of these promotions are bringing in very like sometimes the same names that we are seeing in different places. What do you think is a differentiating point for these companies if they're bringing in, say, for example, you know, Australian wrestler A, Australian wrestler B, who we've seen wrestle in other promotions everywhere
Mm.
else, but now they're going to wrestle for this promotion. Do you find like that can be a little bit hard to sort of try and sell the audience on sometimes?
Mm. Do you mean like a match that everyone has seen a million times before almost? Or
Yeah,
like, yeah. I think it depends. Like some crowds just want to see what everyone else has already seen and don't want to miss out. So I think like you can definitely do it, but you can always like bring that well-known Australian wrestler out and have them wrestle one of your guys and it be an even bigger deal. So I think
yeah,
there's like, as I say, I never claim to be a good business person about things like this, but there's many different ways you can do it, and I never see there being like a right or wrong way to book a show or
yeah,
book certain wrestlers. But yeah, I think there's many different ways you can do it. I can also understand like the idea of uh like seeing the same amount, like the same 5 people pop up on each show around Australia. But that's where the money is. If the people want to see that wrestler, then obviously you're going to get that wrestler. So it makes sense to me.
yeah. So it's more companies listening to what their fan base is saying and what they want to see.
I say so, yeah.
Yeah. Who would you say would be the biggest draw in the Australian wrestling scene today?
Robbie
If you had to
Eagles.
put Robbie Eagles,
Yeah, I'd say
yeah,
so.
just because of the exposure in like Japan and what he's done.
He's a New Japan superstar.
Absolutely,
Yeah, no, I
absolutely.
think Robbie is like literally not just the best wrestler in Australia, but one of the best in the world. So he would be the main draw in my eyes, anyway.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I'd agree with that to a certain extent. I think as well, like we're starting to see more like stars coming up, like Cherry Stevens. I keep putting her over because I think she is
Oh,
just
she's a superstar.
phenomenal.
Not even in
And
the making. She's just already a superstar.
oh, great! But the reactions that she gets from
Mm.
crowds is just like it's deafening.
Oh, and it's amazing to see as well because she works so hard for it. Like she's at training multiple nights a week and putting in the work. So it's not only deserved, but it makes me happy to see as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think it would probably be like hard to see someone who's just like putting in all this work and they might just not be getting things or not be picking things up, and I think that would probably be more devastating for the person as well because it's like I'm putting in all these days, all these hours, and
Yeah.
I'm not there. Have you
But
ever
she's
seen?
just really good. She can do everything. Everything at
Yeah,
training. She's like, "Yep, easy. Let's do it."
but have you ever seen someone that's taken a while, like it's taken them a while to really understand how to do things and how to do them well?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And even like becoming like a coach now, I see it. You can see people learning at different stages and different times and people learning different ways. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like some people might pick up selling faster than they pick up, I don't know, a clothesline or something like that. So it just depends on the person. And everyone, as I said, everyone learns in such different ways. They might just need to find the right person to teach it to them as well.
Yeah. I think it's, do you find like, do you see as a coach where people can get like, do people get frustrated if they're not picking things up, or is it just sort of like, I really feel like, I don't know, I've never seen a PWA training session, but I kind of feel like it's a very supportive, very sort of like building up of a place where like, but do people like, have you seen people get like frustrated not being able to get things, or is it like that sort of mentality is like, hey, I'll get there eventually?
Yeah, no, I can definitely see sadly, like people do get frustrated, and it's not a bad thing to be frustrated. Like it's just a natural reaction to things sometimes. But that's where you tell people like the examples and like people learn at different paces and
Mm.
different ways and stuff like that. So you just have to, which is so easy for me to say, but it's not easy for someone to take in almost. I can say like, just get out of your own head. Stop thinking about it so much and just do it 10 times, but it doesn't help someone get out of their own head. Like that's a mental game and I can't help you with a mental game. I can only
Yeah.
help you with your footwork.
That's the thing. Like, I think the mental game is something as for an individual that they really need to be able to, wrap their head around and be able to go past that. But when you were just a young whippersnapper coming up, what was the one thing about pro wrestling that you found that characters, like whether it might be that you weren't able to sort of wrap your head around straight away or took you a while to really understand?
But it was always and still has been more so character stuff and promos that I struggle with, and like talking in front of a crowd. That's always been the main struggle I get. At training, I could pick things up pretty fast. I still do sometimes. I can just do things with my body. I have pretty good body control, but the character stuff and talking in front of people, that was always a struggle. Still is.
I think public speaking is so hard. And it's
It
like,
wasn't even like the public speaking because I've always done drama throughout school. I don't know. It's just there's always been something where I don't know. Being a wrestling character has been a real challenge, I find.
yeah. But do you feel like the best wrestling characters are the ones where it's like the person's personality really gets to shine from that?
I think it just depends on the person. Like people used to say that all the time, but then I've met some people where they're so far off their actual character and they have some of the best characters where I don't believe that so much anymore. I almost feel like I need to be something completely different to me to make it work. Maybe that'll be easier. Or at the moment, my character is quite similar to me. It's definitely more enhanced and more smiley and bubbly and happy. But if I was to do something completely different, maybe that would make it easier for me. Maybe I could do that better.
So you're not a smiley, bubbly, happy person normally?
I guess so, but I definitely smile more in the ring in a creepy way. So smiling when I
Yeah,
shouldn't be smiling, hurting people.
yeah, exactly. One of the things we saw recently was you made your debut in a music video.
Oh yeah, that was sick.
Yeah, so you and Lucci were in that. How
Yeah.
did that come about?
So that came about through the artist Gloomy, who you can find on Spotify and YouTube and everything. She's a really good artist, talented singer. She won a Triple J Unearth competition where she got a music video made by the people at NIDA, and she wanted it
Oh,
to be wrestling. And so she got me and Lucci because we knew each other, and filmed a really cool music video that I was so happy with. I watched it and thought I've never looked cooler.
it looked
I
it
got a
looked
workout montage. How sick.
it was absolutely really well done. And I was talking to Rose about it at the last show, and one of the things he said was it's like they didn't morph her into, hey, this is just short, like she's the wrestler, you know what I mean? Like it was
Yeah.
always you were like the main character of that video.
Yeah. Which was really cool when I saw it because obviously filming it, I had a sense that was what it's going to be like. But yeah, watching it, I just was blown away by how cool I looked. And it was so much fun to film as well. Like it was 3 long nights, but it was really fun to put it together.
And did you have much of like involvement as far as like putting certain like sequences together? Like, or was there a director saying, okay, can you do this? And like explaining what
Yeah,
a
actually,
crossbody is?
that's pretty much exactly how it went. We had a really talented director who is a wrestling fan, watches like WWE and AEW, so he understood a lot of the moves, and then we also gave examples for what we do. So I said, I'm pretty good at the head scissors, so we can just throw in one of those, and that should be pretty good. And then he wanted like the Sheamus clubs to the chest and like the yes kicks, and so we did all the classic stuff, and then we gave them a few extra little things as well and heaps of other stuff that they didn't even use. So how funny that we filmed that at 11 p.m. cold. It was so cold.
Oh wow. Where was it filmed at? Was it filmed at the academy?
The wrestling part was filmed at the training academy.
And is that something that you'd like to sort of get more involved in doing, like doing sort of little projects like music videos, acting, stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like as I said, I'd always been a big fan of drama. So I've always been really into acting. I'd love to do that more. Music videos, any kind of acting kind of stuff really interests me.
Yeah, 100%. And with the acting side of things, like you said you've done drama, and that you have had a little bit of a struggle with the promo stuff. How do you find now with your character and doing promos? You feel comfortable now to go out there and do a good promo or do a passable promo, or like what's your feel about your promo skills now as
I
opposed
think
to?
they're definitely improving, and they've improved from where I first started, obviously. I've always been pretty confident. Once I know what to say, I'm pretty good. But someone telling me like the general gist of a promo and just to go out there and say it, I'm like, but what exact words should I say? Because I stumble on my words quite a lot. So I like to have like a set thing to say so I don't have to stumble as much. And working that out for myself can be hard. But luckily I have some pretty good friends backstage that help me put it together. And like Jax Jordan writes all my promos anyway. So
Oh, that's pretty good.
yeah.
But like, is like when you do a live promo though, like, do you find it would be hard? Like, it's hard to go out there and cut a live promo and remember everything that you've got to say.
No, I don't find that part too hard. I've never had a bad memory issue. It's just working out what I want to say. I think that's the issue. And like putting my emotions into thoughts is always really hard for me. So once I know what I'm going to say, I'm all good. I'm ready to go. And it's fun, surprisingly.
I feel like most wrestling fans would probably look at promos and be like, oh yeah, I could go out and cut a promo like The Rock like that. But it's like when you're there with a microphone in your hand or and have the room's attention on you with like 100+ people, that's intimidating.
It is, yeah, it is quite intimidating. And I find that more scary than going out there and having like a 20-minute match. Like a 2-minute promo is more scary for me, but that's why we've got to keep working on it and keep getting better. Keep pushing my comfort zones.
Oh, 100%. Robbo in the chat says, I loved your little promos during the Premiership tournament.
And they were really fun because they make us just sit down and tell us, now say words. And I said words and everything worked out okay. So I can do it. It's just scary.
Yeah. But do you think that that's like you getting in your own head? Like, as you said before, like, people having like the mental, you can't break that mental. They're going to have to do that.
Yeah. And because I've always told myself, you struggle with promos, you can't talk. If I keep saying that, obviously I'm going to keep thinking it. But as I said, it's easy for me to say, get out of your own head. But I'm not out of it yet. So
I think that that's the case for a lot of people though. Like you can't just, you can say, oh yeah, don't think about that. Okay. Yeah. I'm not going to think about it. And like a second later, oh shit.
10 days.
Yeah, exactly. But look, we are almost at the hour mark. It is that time of the show where it's 60 seconds with Piers. How this is going to work. You'll be fine. But how this is going to work, I'm going to ask Jessica a bunch of questions. She's got 60 seconds to answer as many as she can. You let me know.
Is there a prize for most answered questions, or can I just spend the whole 60 seconds thinking about the one question?
I mean, it wouldn't be entertaining content to do that.
Sure, I guess you're right.
But we'll see how we go. We'll get it started. But you let me know when you're ready and we'll get it going.
I'm all good.
Favorite song to sing at karaoke?
Man-Eater.
What is your dream car?
I don't drive.
Okay. If you could take all the credit for any song in history, which song would it be?
Oh my God. Maybe Thriller by Michael Jackson.
Nice. What is your biggest pet peeve?
When people chew with their mouth open.
Favorite zoo animal?
Red panda.
Which movie could you sit there and quote every word to?
Ace Ventura.
Would you rather be 4'5" or 7'7"?
4'5".
Cadbury chocolate or Nestle chocolate?
Cadbury.
If you could turn into someone else for a day and live their life, who would it be?
Someone else for a day and live their life. Oh my God. That's a great question.
Thank you.
Someone that's really, really, really happy.
Which celebrity would play you in a movie about your life?
I don't know many celebrities that look like me.
What would your autobiography be called?
She's always bad at talking.
And last one, in 5 minutes' time, you're being shipped out of space. What 2 personal belongings do you take with you, excluding human beings?
Excluding what, sorry?
Human beings.
Oh, it's a shame. I take my favorite book and some sunscreen because I'll be closer to the sun.
That's it. That has been 60 seconds with Piers. Jess, thank you so much for coming back on the show. I've had a great time talking with you. It's always great to catch up with you. Where can everyone find you? And tell us, where can people find your Patreon and go and support you on that as well?
Well, they can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Jessica Troy Pro. You can find my Patreon. It's just Jessica Troy. You can see me this weekend in Melbourne at Coliseum, next weekend at Wollongong and Nui, the 21st at the Roundhouse, and 28th at Canberra. All that information will be on PWA's Facebook page and all that kind of stuff. And if you want to support me, I have a brand new merch shirt. It has a bunch of arms on it, and it says my name.
There you go.
I drew it myself.
Go and check out Jess's new merch. Go and subscribe to the Patreon. Check out PWA Coliseum this Friday and Saturday. If you're not in Melbourne, it is going to be streamed on Fight TV. PWA and everyone on the team there are doing such amazing things. Jess, thank you so much for your time. It's been great talking to you. I appreciate you coming on the show.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Anytime. Talk soon. Peace.
Bye.